Dear viewers of the Tom Photo channel, in my earlier video, what should be my next Fujifilm camera, I compared all Fuji cameras and decided that the Fuji X-S10 ticked most boxes for me and was destined to be my future camera. Guess what? It's now done. Take a look at my X-S10. It only had 700 photos on it when I picked it up, so it's very much like new. I'm very happy with this camera, and then maybe not. Let me tell you why I feel this way. The name of the game here is in-body image stabilization, or IBIS. I think this brings more value than most other functions. The X-S10 stands out because it's just about the least expensive Fuji to offer IBIS. Well, maybe an old X-H1 is cheaper, but that camera is much larger than my new friend. If you shoot with prime lenses in low light or film with them, then you know the value of IBIS. The X-S10 is a very good camera in terms of what it can do and how compact it is at the same time. It weighs only 465 grams with battery and memory card. Obviously more when fully dressed with lens, hood, strap and more. The photo quality is breathtaking, and this camera seems to be all one could ever want from a modern camera. Fuji X-mount cameras can be broadly grouped into two: the Fuji trademark retro-looking cameras with lots of buttons and incredibly fun controls over the photography process, and the more mainstream and modern-looking, less Fuji-ish cameras with fewer buttons and more reasons to dig in the menus. The X-S10 belongs to the second group, along with the cameras of the XH series. The first group of retro-looking cameras I would divide further into SLR style and rangefinder style. The first of this group contains the XT series, and some examples of the second group are the X Pro and XE cameras. All groups have their pros and cons, but I'm most in love with the XT series, of which I own an X-T20, 2 units of the X-T30 and an X-T3. I consider the rangefinder cameras very stylish, and I love my X-A1 and X-E2. But now this is my first Fuji from the generic camera group, if I may call it that. I had been steering clear so far because I'm such a fan of the Fuji retro group cameras. On the inside, under the hood, the X-S10 shares its soul with my Fuji X-T3 and X-T30 because they all have the same 26 megapixel APS-C X-Trans CMOS 4 sensor, which by the way is fantastic. The difference is really boiled down to IBIS and handling. If you're coming to Fuji from another camera brand, or this is your first camera, you are absolutely going to love the X-S10. It feels so good in hand thanks to its deep and ergonomic grip. It is well built and delivers amazing results like any Fuji camera. If you're a vlogger, you will love that the LCD can be turned in any direction, including facing the front of the camera. You'll likely appreciate that so many of the buttons can be custom programmed to assume new identities. If you're a modern person, then the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity options will make you happy. If you like to shoot video, the 4K of this camera is not going to disappoint. This is one of the top cameras I would recommend. But if you are a long-time Fuji user and think that the Fuji X-T3 is the absolute pinnacle of handling and delivering pure photography fun, and this is me, you can outline some things about the X-S10 that feel maybe too radical. First of all, and I'm far from the first to point this out, is its lack of Fuji's signature focus mode selector next to the lens. This is one of the Fuji's top inventions, and it's so cleverly positioned. My finger is always searching for this button that would allow me to switch the mode without moving my eye away from the viewfinder. On the X-S10, this button is nowhere to be found. Now you need to search for this button in the menu, which takes time, or you need to program some shortcut. If you're not a Fuji person, however, you won't know to miss this button. You need to have developed alongside the retro Fujis to truly appreciate it. The turn and flex anywhere style LCD seems like it's every photographer's dream, and many people will no doubt agree. However, die-hard Fuji fans have often rejected this design as a bad idea. The Fuji X-T4 has it too, by the way. It swivels and turns, You can even turn it away from you to hide it completely. This is great for traveling and when you use only the viewfinder. However, if you photograph from high or low angles, it's too much work to unpack the LCD and turn it where you want. And once you have it facing the way you want, it's not behind the camera, but rather on its side. So you're photographing something in front of you, but need to turn your eyes to the side to see it. This is quite weird, and I cannot get used to it. I understand why Fuji did it. They need to please both photographers and videographers. But it's no easy task to serve two lords. Many Fuji users dislike this design, so when Fuji designed the X-T5, they did not repeat the X-T4's design, but instead returned to the older, classic, simple tilting screen of the X-T3. Many people are thankful to Fuji for that realization. The third obstacle for me is the lack of classic Fuji logic when designing the buttons. There aren't enough of them, they're not prominent enough, and they don't have markings. They change things that you have to check by looking at the LCD. However, many photographers rely on quick visual inspection of buttons and finger muscle memory. It turns out many of us don't like the LCD nearly as much as beefy buttons. I'm very much in this camp myself. Sure, the buttons can be programmed and the camera is nicely customizable, only I personally don't need that. Fuji already had it right in its other models. The button on the left is a dedicated Fuji film simulation button. Fuji is famous for its wonderful film simulations. With Fuji, you are less likely to need to work with RAW files than with most other cameras. My other Fujis have the film simulation options hidden in the menu, and that was fine because I decided on my film simulation beforehand. This camera wants to make the simulations super easy to change by assigning them to a large button on the left. I immediately thought that was unnecessary and wanted to reprogram it. Isn't this where the ISO button is supposed to be? Or maybe the main function button as the second best option? So at first I was very annoyed that such a prominent position was wasted like that. They also do this on the new Fuji X-T50. But then I changed my mind a little. I found myself experimenting with the film simulations more than I had in the past. And I made some wonderful decisions only because this camera made it so easy. So maybe it was a good idea from Fuji after all. Compared to my other Fujis, this one comes with the famous classic NEG film simulation. This simulation is true eye candy. I absolutely love experimenting with it. The large button on the right absolutely has to be the exposure compensation button, or I'm not buying the camera. This is the default for the X-S10, and I like that. I use this button as much as I use the on-off switch. Fuji understands that its users love quick access to the ISO menu, so luckily they have included a small separate ISO button. Not the best solution, but the second best for sure, and it works for me. The X-S10 offers 4 custom positions, C1 through C4. This is really great as it makes the camera much more responsive. Fuji is known for its wonderful quick menu, which is accessed via the Q button. Different cameras place it in different positions. I think the X-T20 has the best solution in terms of placement. The X-S10 has adopted the least fortunate position. It is no longer accessible by thumb as it should be. It is not accessible by index finger either because your index finger does not bend that way. It sits in a row with other small buttons and is impossible to identify by feel. On many occasions I press the video record button instead. So you need to remove the camera from your eye, look at the buttons, and then find the finger that is free to press the Q button, which in my case is my left index finger. That's really weird because I'm strictly right-handed and I look very clumsy doing it. So as you can see, I have some problems with this camera. However, these are all small annoyances that don't bring the camera from 100% down to 30% or 50% in my eyes. They make the camera drop to 95%. Well, maybe 90% at most. This is because the camera is still among the best out there. This is how good Fujis are in my view. Put most buttons where I don't like them, and I'm still rating this camera as a solid A and one of the best. If you want to see an A++ camera, however, please check out my Fuji X-T3 videos, linked below in the text box along with other links. This has been my introductory video to the Fujifilm X-S10. Expect more as I get used to this camera. I'll delve into more details in the future and talk about video and other functions I didn't get to cover today. I can already give you a spoiler. I'm liking my X-S10 more every day as I discover that it has its own ways that are new to me, but they're not necessarily bad at all. If you decide to support me, the best way is to subscribe and like. I truly appreciate your attention and thank you so much for watching. Please enjoy your photography and check back with me again. Goodbye.